The rivalry between China and the United States for superpower status is no secret. But did you know that now it could directly affect your daily life? The two countries are racing to control the world's undersea internet cables, the hidden infrastructure that carries almost all global data. We are talking about your online banking, streaming movies, AI services, international communications, so on and so forth. Any disruption to these cables could have far-reaching consequences for people and businesses everywhere. And today, these very undersea networks have become the new flashpoint in the growing Cold War between America and China. In February this year, off Taiwan's southwest coast, a cargo ship entered a restricted zone and dropped anchor. For more than 2 days, its chain scraped the seabed, cutting communications between the mainland and a nearby archipelago. And eventually, the ship's Chinese captain was imprisoned, but the incident is not an isolated one. Taiwan claims that it suffers 7 to 8 cable breaks per year, which it says is mostly linked to China. Of course, China says they are accidents. Still, it shows just how vulnerable undersea cables really are, a system that we all take for granted. And as the tensions rise between the US and China, protecting and controlling these cables has never been more urgent and necessary. Taipei has stepped up patrolling, imposed tough penalties for sabotage, but military veterans are saying the governments are not catching up to the problem yet. These undersea fiber networks are so vast that some say that put back to back, it could stretch to the moon and back twice. And the US and China are racing to not only protect these cables, but also to control them. According to reports, Washington is shutting China out of its networks, while Beijing is expanding its own digital Silk Road. On one side, you have PEACE, or Peace, built by China's HM technology, which became fully operational in the year 2024. On the other hand, you have the one being built by the US-based Subcom and is set to be running in early 2026. Both cables making their way to Europe, but the paths that these cables take are not random. The key here is to look at the divergences in their pathways, basically, and they will tell you how connectivity aligns with the strategic ambitions of their key backers. While China-backed cable bypasses regional rival India and makes stops in Africa, the US-backed one connects India and some Gulf economies. Undersea cables carry 99% of international internet traffic. Everything from AI queries to military coordination to $10 trillion in daily financial transactions. Earlier this year itself, the Peace cable was mysteriously severed near the Gulf of Suez, disrupting traffic between Asia, East Africa, and Europe, until it was finally repaired 3 weeks later. And earlier this year, the Peace cable was mysteriously severed. In fact, this had implications, like we said. What's more, only 4 companies manufacture nearly all subsea cables, including China's HMN, the US Subcom, Japan's NEC, France's Alcatel. But the landscape is rapidly changing. Tech giants like Meta, Google, Microsoft, Amazon now controlling more than 70% of subsea cable capacity, up from less than 10% a decade ago. Meta is now also building the world's longest submarine cable, called Project Waterworth, spanning 50,000 kilometers. The objective is clear: secure bandwidth, reduce costs, and also ensure connectivity in the age of AI. And as you can see, cables are important for intercontinental communication, and so the stakes are as high as they could be. But cables are also fragile, particularly near the landing points and the shallow waters. In incidents like the one we mentioned earlier, the vessel scraping, collecting evidence, enforcing the law is difficult, especially in cases of the so-called grey zone operations, which are basically coercive moves that stop short of war in a way, but target weak points like undersea cables. In such a case, it can be disguised as fishing accidents. We've already seen incidents like the one in Europe and the Red Sea. In December 2024, a ship departing from the Russian port of Ust-Luga dragged its anchor 90 kilometers across the Gulf of Finland, severing 5 data and power cables and inflicting at least $70 million worth of damage. And so Europe and NATO have poured money into AI-enabled monitoring drones, submersible repair robots, and hybrid defenses in order to protect them. China, meanwhile, has invested heavily in undersea sensors, what it calls an underwater Great Wall. China has also reportedly encouraged some countries to choose its cable network with financial support or cheap bids. The US has countered with its own financial incentives, along with diplomatic pressure to dissuade strategically located countries such as Vietnam from depending on Chinese infrastructure. It is expected that by 2040, the global undersea cable network will grow by nearly 50%, with new corridors connecting emerging markets. It's clear governments are not prepared for just how vulnerable to sabotage these undersea cables are. The modern economy, global communication, even the AI race depend on these hidden, fragile infrastructure beneath our oceans. To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.